Hey guys, it's Robert Gardner with the Robert Gardner Wellness Podcast. I'm here with Jeremy Simpson to discuss wild hogs and hunting management, sustainability issues in Texas. Jeremy, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Cool. So you educate me because I am limited in my knowledge base in regards to wild hogs. What are the things that you really want the listeners to learn about? What are the things that you run into in your field that you wish people understood better?
There are a lot of misconceptions that people have when it comes to wild hogs in Texas, a lot of misunderstandings. There are obviously a lot of different types of hunters. There are different types of people, and everybody has their own opinion, and they're all entitled to that. I think that there are, unfortunately, some opinions on what we do that people have come to draw without any real knowledge of the subject. We take care of a lot of peanut land up in West Texas, Northwest Texas, where people are providing the peanuts for the peanut companies like Jiffy and Peter Pan, those types of places that are providing the peanut butter that everybody eats, that we put in our kids' lunches, that kind of stuff. These pigs, if they were left unchecked, would destroy that industry. Talking with my landowners, we've got, from the consensus that I've gathered from different landowners that I have, if left unchecked, these pigs would destroy upwards of 50 to 60% of their crops yearly, which obviously you can imagine the monetary issues that would present to them and the sustainability of the peanut crops and industries in Texas.
I will admit I'm a novice. I'm interested in hunting. I don't come from a hunting family, don't know anything about it. I walked into the hog group that I've been following for a year or so, getting little snippets of information. And as soon as I said, hey, podcast, people looked at me like the game warden had just walked in and was getting ready to get information on somebody. And I was like, whoa, did I step into a landmine?
That's an unfortunate part of society today. There have been a couple of different groups that have come from the same angle that you're coming from as far as asking and looking for information. And then when they put that information out, they've spun it in a negative light. And they've made the people look quite cruel, honestly. They put them in a light that doesn't suit what their true intentions are or the things they're doing. And so people are a little bit skeptical right now of people coming in from an outside angle and asking questions.
For my followers, just to give some background, in the past couple of years, I've been primarily eating towards a carnivore diet, which means my primary sustenance is beef and beef fat. I have some other meats here and there, but my body has responded very well to that. I've been watching Meat Eater with Steve Rinella. And the thing about Steve that drew me in was he seemed to tie together all of these interests I had, which was like sustainability and stewardship, land management, and also just sane policy in regards to hunting. The reason I wrote on the hog group was like, to me, as a native Louisianan, I live in Austin now, but I grew up in Louisiana. Nutria are a problem. They are an invasive species, and they've tried to get Cajuns to eat their way out of the problem. But in Texas, the big issue seems to be wild hogs. So to me, it was a no-brainer. It's like they're a pest. They're not a native species. They're hurting people's crops. We can eat our way. We can hunt our way out of the problem for the most part. I understood very quickly, just from the brief responses and phone calls I've had so far, just how deep all of the issues go, from gun rights to politics to land management to taxes to federal organizations. You know, you need a hunting license. It gets to this weird spot where I feel like I stepped into the middle of a hornet's nest.
I will say one thing that speaks to the problem that the hogs are presenting in Texas. Hogs are the only animal in Texas that you do not need a hunting license to hunt. If you wanted to go out and shoot predators that were eating your cattle, coyotes, anything like that, you're going to need a hunting license to do that. Deer, rabbits, birds, anything like that, you're going to have a hunting license. Pigs have gotten to the point in Texas where they're creating enough of an issue that the state has come in and said you no longer need a hunting license to hunt pigs. We need them kept in check. Unfortunately, hunting will never control the pig population in Texas by itself. Yeah. Regardless of how great people can be at it, there's no way that we'll ever get it completely under wraps. just by hunting in Texas.
Then the issue becomes hunters play a vital portion of a role in management. Then is it trapping? How are they trying to handle like dealing with this? Because I don't know anything about peanut crops. When you started talking about peanuts, I was like, oh, pigs, that's a problem. You know, peanuts are in the ground, they're rooting around, probably destroying all their peanut crop. But it's something that me, as somebody who lives in Austin, I just don't think about.
Correct. You know, the peanuts are an issue up here. There's peanuts all the way down the south. I'm actually from Marble Falls, right up the road from you. I've been in Lubbock since 2003, and I've been doing this for the last few years around here, helping the peanut farmers out. It doesn't matter if it's peanuts or if it's corn, soybeans, the rice fields down around Houston. There are a lot of agricultural industries in Texas that are greatly affected by the pigs and the damage that they do. When you look at the way the economics work in it with the costation of the products that you're getting from those farmers, they're having to figure losses in due to these pigs, which then raises the price in your local grocery store on the products that these pigs are tearing up in the fields. You know, you can never take care of them with hunting. Trapping is effective as well. I do believe that with a mixture of hunting and trapping together, if it's done properly, that you can control it.
What are the issues you see with the trapping? Like when you say it's done properly, what's a manifestation of improper?
Okay. The intelligence levels of pigs are what a lot of people take for granted. They say that pigs have the cognitive ability of a 4-year-old child, which might not sound like much, but if you take a 4-year-old and you put them in an environment where they harm themselves or they have one of their little friends get harmed, they see the things that cause harm, and then they're going to remember that and they're going to respond accordingly to that harm when they're put in that position again. So what happens with the trapping is people will set a trap out, and especially with the ones that are not cellular controlled, the ones that are just tripwire controlled, they've got some kind of dummy rig on them that causes the trap door to close and catches a couple of pigs. Now what happens is you get a group of 20 or 30 pigs, which are running in a sounder, which is what a group of pigs is called. They're going to come in around this trap. The trap closes on 1 or 2 pigs. The other 18 or 20 or 28 or however many are there learn to stay away from that trap. At that point, that trap becomes ineffective for those pigs, the piglets that will be raised with those pigs in generational going down the line. Now, there are other traps that, like I was mentioning, that are cellular controlled. So people can see on their phone when the trap is full with the pigs and they've got all the pigs in the inside the trap. Basically, they hit a switch, the trap falls, traps all of the pigs. So it's effective in that. But like I say, to really get a grasp on the hog population, it's going to take effective trapping as well as thermal and helicopter hunting for these pigs to get it done. When I speak of hunting these pigs, I do not mean somebody sitting in a deer blind with their granddad's deer rifle and shooting a pig every other day or 1 pig a week. That will not ever help control the population of these pigs with the amount of pigs that are reproducing and as fast as they're reproducing.
Yeah. I am so taken aback again to just like walk into what felt like a little bit of a hornet's nest and realize I'm completely out of my element. Because I talked to several people and it's like, man, it started to get weird real quick because in Texas, property rights is a big deal. People have a real sense of like, this is my land, you know, I should be able to do certain things on it. And when whew.
It's a big deal in Texas. It is. And I understand from these farmers' point of views. I've been very lucky that I've been able to get in with the people that I am in with that allow me to take care of their land. But it was not an easy, short process. There were a lot of proving myself that had to have been done to get that. And a lot of people don't understand in Texas that you've got some of these people that own this land, and there's so much liability out there of somebody coming on and shooting a tractor or shooting a pivot, which is irrigation system, shooting a cow, all of these different things. And while they're monetarily replaceable, it burns the trust factor.
Yeah.
And that, you know, you get some of these guys that have owned this land for generations, and one bad experience with one person can hurt everybody's opportunity and chance to get on that land.
The stewardship, again, as a novice, watching Steve Ranella, him riding the line between harvesting animals and understanding that, like, the lottery system for certain species. He was hunting mountain goats in a recent episode, and I don't have as much background with it. So to understand, okay, he drew a tag for this mountain goat, very different than hogs. And he's like, I can't draw another tag. I can't even apply for another 7 years. He's like, this might be the last time I ever get a chance. I'm like, wow. I just, it's a window into this world that's just unknown to me. And when I got the photos from you, I was laughing hysterically because I think, from no offense to people, but it's like if you're a city slicker and you see a guy leaning on a mountain of hogs, you're like, that's absurd. And it's like, they're like rats. They're pests. They're destroying people's land. This is just,
Like,
yeah.
exactly right. What I've told people, if you can step on a cockroach in your kitchen, or if you can trap a mouse in your garage and you're not losing sleep over that, you shouldn't lose sleep over people taking care of the pigs that are the same type of nuisance to these farmers.
I see the divide, and even when I talk to some friends about this, they were interesting. They were kind of like, dude, what are you what are you doing? You're stepping into like Republican central, gun owning. And I'm like, wait a second. Okay. I mean, yes, I'm stepping into a different population of people who are dealing with rural concerns. The pigs are probably encroaching on cities in various ways. Like, I've seen photos, I think, here in like Georgetown or something, where they've had an occasional pig run through a parking lot. But when people only have any interaction with animals as pets or picking up meat at a grocery store, I don't think they really understand the difference between, like, a farmer has a cow that's not a pet. This is a part of the farming environment and resources that they're dealing with, land management. And then hogs are coming along and like destroying things and, causing, just wreaking havoc, essentially. It's a strange construct because for me, on the outside, this is me again as a novice, I went, they're a pest, they're edible, and in Louisiana, that's how we solve problems. But then you're dealing with all this increasing complexity because the hogs don't care about your law. They don't care about property rights.
They don't. Not only that, but they also don't care about the traffic laws. Living where you're living. If you look at the tollway that has gone out just outside of Austin, look at the amount of traffic fatalities, traffic accidents that happen just on that little stretch of road that you can tie directly to feral pigs. And when you talk about city slickers and you talk about Republicans and Democrats, all of those folks, they're all people that are in some way or another are going to be affected by these animals at some point or another. Their take on proper management, they may have extremely differing opinions, which is okay, but they're all going to be affected in some way at some point by it.
Yeah. It's just, as I'm using the podcast to reach out to different audiences, it was just almost painful for me to start to hear some of the same issues in regards to government control. And what came up, I think, very quickly was, is it warfarin? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Warfarin.
Warfarin. Yeah. Can you explain what that is very briefly and how that affects hog hunting and issues?
They came out with a poison that Sid Miller went to release that basically the hogs would ingest, and it would cause them to. The problem was there were other animals that are out there that are not the target animals that are becoming casualties due to this poison. You have a pig that eats it and dies that has the poison in it. And you're going to have the vultures that are eating the pigs. You're going to have coyotes that are eating the pigs. You're going to have songbirds that come in and might eat out of the same corn feeder as the pigs that have this warfarin in it. And while pigs are an issue, poisoning the other wildlife around is obviously not going to be the right way to go about taking care of the pigs.
Are there, and again, because it's unknown to me, are people still using this, like, commonly to poison pigs?
Not legally.
Not legally, okay.
I do hear stories of farmers that go out and, these farmers aren't shooting the pigs. They don't have people like me out shooting them. They are putting out buckets of poison, and whatever dies. These guys, they want to protect their land. They want to protect their crops. They don't have pets running around the area. They don't have cattle running around the area. So if a pig comes in and eats it, or a coyote comes in and eats it, or a crow, or a mockingbird, squirrel, it's really not bothering them because their main goal is to take care of their crops and their land.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you see in regards to these issues that you'd like to bring to more light? The things that you wish the public understood about the issue?
There is a huge opportunity to take care of multiple issues with this hog problem that we're missing out on in the state of Texas. I have, and many other people like me, have looked at doing things to feed hungry people. You know, we have a lot of people in our communities that don't have a good source of meat. They don't have a good source of protein. They can't go down and pick out the steaks that they want and make, you know, the sausage and the bacon and all the other things from the store that some of us take for granted because financially they're not able to. If the government would open up a little bit and understand that there are avenues that we can take to feed these people that are in need with these animals that we're harvesting off these crops, it would basically kill two birds with one stone, if you will. You know, I know that myself and my friends, my company, my clients, I'm fairly certain we could feed the hungry population for a pretty big distance around Lubbock, where I live, by ourselves, were the government to open up and allow us to do that without trying to have too much overreach and step in. And I understand that they want to protect by making sure that the animals are safe and they're processed properly and all of these things. But if they were to allow people like myself to donate these pigs and have them properly processed and give them to hungry families, it would be done in the same facilities that they already allow things like Hunters for the Hungry. Hunters for the Hungry, you can go down yourself and you can shoot a pig and you can go drop it off at a processing facility and pay them $50. They'll process that pig and they'll donate it through the game wardens and other people to places that need it.
Yeah.
The problem is at $50 a pig, when these farmers and these landowners have folks like me come out to take care of them, they don't want 2 or 3 pigs killed. They don't want, you know, you to round them up and wait until the next time you've got another $200 or $300 or $500 that you can go and donate to getting these pigs processed. They want the pigs gone, or they're going to find somebody else that'll come out and make them gone. That being said, if we could take these animals that we are harvesting, I think that we could definitely help out our fellow Texans that need it.
When you go out and kill a hog, you can keep the meat for your own personal consumption. It is not legal for you to sell it.
Correct.
Okay, and you also cannot give it away.
You cannot sell it for human consumption. There are a couple of companies in the state of Texas that will take those pigs and they will buy them and use them in dog food. They'll use them in animal nutrition. So there are people out there that do that. I do know people personally that they fund their addiction to the hunting with selling those animals to the dog food companies.
So wild hogs are going to the same, is it the abattoir? They're going to the same processing facility that farm pigs are going to. Am I correct?
Yes and no. They can. They would be going to the same facilities, though, that a deer or some of these other, generally in the area that I'm in, you're going to have the processing facilities are going to take care of animals that are produce coming off of the livestock, and you're also going to have wild pigs, wild deer, those types of animals, all going through the same facility, which have to have all of their certifications. They get inspected. They have to pass the inspections, all of that stuff to make sure that they're safe to process these meats before people consume them regularly.
And for the concern that I'm assuming it's a USDA inspected facility, is the main concern trichinosis?
That is going to be a concern. I think there are more than just that on their plate. But the issue that we have is with the hunting part of it, they want to be able to inspect the animals while they're alive, or you can't donate them. Ooh. Obviously, with what we talked about with the trapping, you're not going to completely control the population. Now, if you catch them in a trap, you can take those pigs and you can put them in a pen and have somebody come by and check them and then donate them and do whatever you would like. However, again, for what we're going for, that's going to be a very small portion of the total harvest.
Yeah. So you don't need a hunting license. There's no season on pigs. Are they primarily hunting the pigs at night?
To be effective at them, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well,
And then do the animals sort of, I want to say hibernate, do they lay low during the day, during the heat of the day?
they'll lay low. Basically, they're going to stay out of the line of sight. They don't. They are smart enough to know that if they are seen, they're going to get shot at. Whether the farmer has a gun in his truck or whatever happens, they know better than to be seen. So they do travel more at night, especially in the areas that we're in. We have a lot of wide open agricultural fields up here that are cultivated fields. You know, you can see. I make jokes to clients that you come to West Texas and you can watch your dog run away for a week. The fields are that flat. So, you know, pigs have got to travel a long way to get into some of these fields at night or to get into them to eat anytime. So it's obviously safer for them to do it at night.
As somebody who appreciates fine dining, good food, you can't shoot hogs and then sell the meat unless it's inspected. Am I getting that correct?
You can't shoot a wild hog and sell it regardless,
Okay.
but you can't even donate it without it being inspected.
You can donate it. All right. So
Once it's inspected, you could donate it. Yes, sir.
yeah. And then restaurants. There are not restaurants, because I'm in Austin. There are not restaurants in Austin serving that I've ever seen wild hog on their menu.
There are,
Okay.
but they're doing it. They're not using the wild hog like we're talking about. Generally, they're using a hog that has been trapped and then brought into a captive facility and then fed up a little bit,
Okay.
and then slaughtered. I don't think you're going to run into many places in Austin where they're going to have a boar, you know, or a big gilt that was out in the field that was shot the night before that is brought in, and you're getting some ribs and some bacon and that type of stuff. Now, I've heard, I haven't experienced it myself, but I've heard in Europe they actually do have people that will go out and shoot pigs for some of these restaurants, and they will serve true wild pork on their menu, and it's a delicacy to those folks.
Yeah. Oh, I've had enough conversations with hunters so far that I've drooled several times just at the thought. For those of you who have not had the experience, wild game has a very different flavor because it's not primarily fattened on corn. There's a rustic flavor that goes with game meats that I find holds up very well to grilling and smoking, because the smokiness and that gaminess kind of meet each other. I think of it as, you know, high cuisine and art. It's something that I'm really interested in, and the more I've focused on carnivore diet and eating more meat and fat, it made me more interested in it.
One thing that I will say that a lot of people don't take into consideration is when you're talking about eating wild game, the geography of the land that the people are hunting in makes a big difference in the way the animal's going to taste. If you come in our area, these pigs are eating mostly wheat, corn, and peanuts. They're not really scavenging and doing some of the stuff like they even have to do around Austin. There's not as much agriculture around Austin. So the pigs around there are not going to be eating that. They're going to be eating more wild grass. They're going to be digging for earthworms. They're going to have that type of diet, and the taste, the texture, all of the things you're talking about are going to be much different from a true wild hog here to a true wild hog where you're at, just due to the crops that they're able to eat every day. So a lot of people don't realize that the food that these pigs around here are eating are pretty much the same things that would be fed to a pig in a feed lot to fatten one up. I mean, the corn, the peanuts, that kind of stuff. That's what they're eating up here already. So we have really, really good tasting wild game. The fat layers in the animals are a good way of being able to tell, as you were alluding to them having a corn diet and getting fat with that. People that come up here regularly talk about the fat on our animals being a lot heavier than what they're used to in other areas that they've hunted. We have actual pigs that have enough fat to have bacon on a wild pig, which is not a common deal around Texas.
Yeah. The preparation methods, growing up in Louisiana, it was much more heavy in chicken, pork, and seafood. It took a little bit of an adjustment time for me to get acclimated more towards beef, and I've learned to appreciate it very deeply. Then being in the local region, I just feel like there's this whole side of Texas that I haven't had a chance to see. When I was watching Steve Ranella and on Meat Eater, there was several episodes where he went through portions of Texas, and it was hunting like I think axis deer and some other antelope species that I had never heard of that are not native. But I think the reason that they're not on the news as much is they're not as debilitating or destructive to the local economy or like farmers' crops.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got a lot of different opportunity in Texas on all kinds of wild game, but as far as the damage, the animals that are causing the damage to the local landowners, there's nothing that comes close to hogs.
What is one of the primary things you'd like to see? You talked about government, and you'd like to see government restrictions sort of loosened on your capacity to be able to harvest hogs and give that meat away to them. What other things would you like to see that you think would help with the management of them as a pest?
I don't know that I have a lot of suggestions on that. There are a lot of people that have thrown things out that have already been put into practice. You have counties that will put a bounty on the pigs. You've got people that go out and they'll have to take the tail off the pig when they harvest it, and they'll take a bag full of tails into the person that's running this operation with the county, and they'll get $5 or $10 per pig and a bounty for the pigs. They're trying to take care of them that way. You've got the loosened regulations for the hunting license. Now, you do still have to have hunter's education in the state of Texas or one of the states that Texas will recognize in order to hunt them in Texas, but you do not have to have a license. With some of the things that the state's already doing and the different counties and local municipalities are doing to take care of the pigs, there's a lot of different ideas floating around already. So I'm not going to say that I have any kind of original idea that would be groundbreaking by any means. I just think that if there was enough money put into the research of the harvest that we have and seeing if there is a safe alternative to getting these pigs in front of people that need them, I think that quite honestly, I can name 3 or 4, maybe 5 groups of people around the state of Texas that do what I do that are as effective as we are. And I am confident in saying that if the state would step up and have a program developed that could test the meat and give the meat to people that needed it, we could, just amongst me and my friends, feed a majority of the hungry people in Texas with protein. That sounds like a very large claim. That sounds astronomical to some folks. But when you consider myself and my friends here locally will kill 2,000 or 3,000 pigs, you do that at 4 or 5 different places around the state, you're killing, put it at 20,000 pigs in a year. With some of the groups that do it with the helicopters and whatnot, that's a low number. You start getting those pigs processed, it might take a little while to get caught up, but once you do it for a while, there's going to be enough meat rolling in to keep most of these hungry folks fed.
And that's just completely mind-boggling to me. I'm aware of grass-finished beef and elements related to sustainable farming and rotational grazing and stuff that I've looked up as I'm kind of going, this direction. But not having lived in a rural area where hogs were a problem, like when you sent me the photos, I just went, because you think, oh, it's like a guy's hunting white-tailed deer and he's got one deer. He's proud that he killed this one deer. It's like, here's a mountain of hogs.
That's in a one-night deal, and we go out multiple times a week, and these hogs just keep reproducing, and they continue to show back up, and they're everywhere. When
you harvest, say 20 hogs in a night, are you actually cleaning and processing those yourself with your friends and hunters?
Not always. Now we give the opportunity to the hunters when they come in if they want to take those. My primary concern at this point in time with my hands being handcuffed the way they are, I can't get rid of these pigs. Even if I were to clean all of them and try, I can't do anything with them. If they caught me trying to give them away to people, I can be fined. They can come after me. So unfortunately, until something changes with the laws and the regulations, we have to dispose of the pigs. We have these farmers will create places for us to dispose of the pigs, and we have to get these pigs gone because they just keep replicating and duplicating, and there are going to be more and more of them out there to the point that there's not going to be any ability to sustain agriculture in the area.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. I'm trying to figure out. So when you go out and you take care of you called it a sounder? Is that the whole group of pigs?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then you get, 18 out of the 20. Since you've killed those pigs, you're not able to actually clean one of those and take some of that meat home with you?
With us, yes. Now we can do that. Some of the pigs. What I'm saying is, with the number, with what we have going on, with the number of pigs that we're responsible to take care of, if everybody had every room in their home full of freezers and stuff, we would have them full and we would not use all of them. We can take enough, and we can have the hunters, when they come out, take enough with them to fill up their coolers and all of that. But it in no way touches being able to put all of the pigs that we're taking to use. So
Okay.
there is waste involved, and none of us like that. There's nobody that loves and enjoys the fact that these animals are going to waste. But it's an unfortunate truth in what we're having to do right now for these farmers, that until something changes in the regulations, there's going to be waste on these.
Yeah, in my world, I'm listening to it and I'm like, it sounds like rats. It's like it went from like this is a delicacy and it's pork to like it's rats, man. They're a pest. They're destroying things. Like there's so much of it we can't even deal with the problem. Like we're trying to manage it, excuse me, but the issue is so big that like me and my hunter friends can't wipe this out alone. Like there needs to be more. It sounds like systemic management between trapping and hunting and various things to be able to try to manage the problem.
Correct. If everybody were to work together on the trapping and the thermal and the helicopter hunting, I think that we could probably at least curb the problem in the state. We're never going to do away with them. They are an invasive species, but I don't think that anybody wants to completely eradicate the whole population of pigs altogether, because they are part of the ecosystem now. There are a lot of people that enjoy hunting them on their deer lease that aren't going out and going out with a guide or an outfitter. They're just a guy and his son sitting in a deer blind somewhere and waiting for deer to walk out, and a pig walks out. They enjoy that.
Yeah.
But I think that with the different aspects of hunting that we can offer, with the trapping as well, I think that it provides an opportunity to deal with the pigs without having to introduce poison into the ecosystem, which will potentially damage other animals that we don't want to have any harm done to.
When hogs are in an area and they're destroying habitat for native flora and fauna, is it hurting other specific game species like deer?
Hogs will eat baby. I had one of my farmers, landowners, whatever you want to call them, call me this year, and he was pretty distraught because there was a group of a few larger hogs that were circling a newborn calf in the field. And that's out in the middle of the open, in the middle of the day, where a farmer's going to be able to see them. So I can only imagine the type of other offspring that these pigs are going to be eating and putting in as part of their diet. There's a lot of, I don't want to say rumor, but it's kind of a rumor around the state of Texas that the rattlesnakes in these areas have stopped rattling because these pigs will eat them. They use it as a location mechanism, and they find these rattlesnakes and eat them. Whether that's true or not, I can say that they definitely do not rattle in my area. You can step right in the middle of a rattlesnake and seldomly will ever you hear one of them rattle. So I can only assume, due to that kind of stuff, that they are affecting the other native wildlife in the area with the overpopulation that we have of them.
Yeah, the ecology of it is so complex. I can't even fathom who's doing research from what local universities to be able to try to figure out how wild hog populations are affecting other native, fauna.
It would be great to know. It would be one more thing that we could use in the fight against them. I mean, knowledge, I think, would help bring everybody from all different walks of life together. If there was more readily available knowledge from sources that folks trusted. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that walk around the sidewalks there in Austin with you that won't listen to the things that I say and think that it's an educated outlook on it. However, where there are a university coming up and finding the same results and putting it into publication, I think that that would open up a lot more eyes that are shielded to it otherwise.
The wild hogs that are running around Texas, I'm assuming genetically are related to wild hogs across the United States. Are these just domesticated pigs that got loose at some point historically, or like where does that work genetically? Do you know?
I'd be lying if I acted like I was an expert in that subject. I've been told that there were pigs that were released, years and years, century or decades ago, I should say, around coastal areas that people released them to hunt that have spread. There have been, numerous stories of pig farms that have released their pigs out to the wild. You've got some of the Russian boar, which I can say that in seeing one or two groups of pigs where we are in a night, you'll see that there's a lot of different genetics there. You'll have some of the pigs that have more of the Russian boar look to it, with the big broad shoulders up front, the ridge back on it, long tusks, that type of stuff. And then you'll also see, a pig that looks like a ham walking around that's got multiple colors and, fat and stocky and equal all the way through the body. Yeah. So there's a lot of different genetics that have gotten into these pigs, and with the way that they reproduce as often as they do, there's no telling anymore what's what.
Is the javelina? I didn't know anything. Again, Steve Ranella, like I'm a complete noob here. Steven Ranella was talking about the javelinas in South Texas. Are the javelina a wild pig that's a little bit smaller? It looked like it was.
I believe I'm saying that properly. Yeah. Might be butchering that, but it is not. It's more of a rodent.
Okay.
It's a family where the pig is not there, not genetically related.
Oh, okay, cool. I wasn't quite sure. It looked like it may be similar, but.
They look very similar, and a lot of people make that mistake. Javelinas are actually regulated by the state of Texas on your hunting license and the hunting regulations. You're only allowed to kill a certain amount in each area a year, where, again, the pigs are open season year-round.
Yeah, it's just so much to learn. Just the species in Texas, and then just for my clarification, I don't think about this because I work in the massage industry. Everybody thinks it's rainbows and unicorns. And every state I go to is a new set of laws, and they're interpreted and enforced differently. And I can go to Arkansas and can't give a massage, but I can teach a class, and it sometimes doesn't make sense. If I go to Louisiana, I have to have a separate hunting license. If I go to Arkansas, I have to have a separate hunting license.
Right.
So I got to get a new hunting license in all those states if I'm going to those states to hunt, correct?
Depending on the actual state regulations in those states. And
yeah,
that's an unfortunate part of the outdoor industry now, is a lot of these states charge a lot of money for people to come in from out of state and hunt. Texas is that way. What it would cost somebody to come in from an out of state and hunt a deer, it's kind of surprising to some people, because it is not a cheap deal. So out of state licenses do have to be purchased if you're from out of state, other than hunting pigs. That's one thing I'll say, is that the majority of our clients come from out of state, and they do not have to have a Texas hunting license if they only shoot pigs. I make that very clear to everybody right up front. If they see a coyote or anything else, we're not even looking at it.
Yeah.
Bring that hunter's education card, though, that from their state that they reside in, bring it to Texas in case they're asked to provide that by a game warden.
Man, it was hilarious to me to go into a completely different, nothing to do with massage. Wild hogs and massage is about as far apart as we could get. And then all of a sudden it was like government, regulation, licensure, red tape, bureaucracy. I'm like, oh God.
That's a whole nother podcast, man. There's a lot of regulation on everybody out there anymore. So that's just kind of the world we live in.
Yeah. When you are harvesting hogs for your own personal consumption, are you keeping like specific cuts of the animal? Are you like, cleaning like a whole hog and then serving that to friends and family? Or because I'm hearing for some people that like some of them are just so thin, like you can't, in other words, you can't make bacon out of the belly. They're only harvesting like the loin and like the shoulders or something somebody mentioned to me.
Depending on the size of the pig, yes. He mentioned, in my wedding, we had a wild pig that was, it was a small one. We got a 40-pound pig, and it was split down the middle, and it was thrown on a barbecue pit. It was fantastic. Everybody loved it. But it was a small pig, it hasn't been bred. It doesn't have any of the hormones going through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Now, if you shoot one that's a little bit bigger, a lot of people that come out with us, they're shooting so many pigs rather than taking the entire pig, they'll take the back straps and the hams.
The back straps and the hams. Did I hear that correctly?
Correct.
Okay. And then the back strap, I'm assuming they just grill in some form. There's a lot of preparations.
And there's a lot of different. There's a gentleman, Daryl, that actually commented on your post.
I had a phone call with him earlier today. Yeah.
That man, you want to talk about cooking pork in the state of Texas? That's your guy.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody better or more knowledgeable than that man. So he would be good to ask about that. I know that there's a lot of different ways. Chicken fried backstrap is one of my favorites.
Chicken fried anything.
How we do it. That's very good. You can make the tenderloins. You can make a pork roast. You can throw it in the crock pot. That's excellent. Excellent way to do it. Pulled pork. I can go on, but those are the cuts that we generally harvest for people when they come in and they've got a certain amount of cooler space to take this stuff back. That's what we do. Now, I will say that we have a couple of groups that come in, and without getting into specifics, they'll bring in a semi truck, refrigerated semi truck, and they'll hunt pigs for a week at a time, and they'll take all of them, and they've got some mission stuff that they do where they are donating that to some people that need it. So they'll take the whole pig, basically. They cut the head off, we skin them and gut them, if you will, and get rid of all the intestines and everything, and then they take the pigs with them. So.
Yeah. The side of Meat Eater with Steve Ranella that I think it's easiest for people to understand, the most connected, is when they're eating a great meal after the hunt. Everybody understands the gustatory pleasure, the delight of a great meal. But when I would see them make various things, and you could see them in Texas specifically, like adapting Tex-Mex stuff into game meals, and it's the most quintessentially Texan thing I can think of. It's like when I have conversations with people about barbecue, and it's kind of like, maybe from Louisiana, barbecue is different in Louisiana. When you came to Texas, it was like, what is going on with this brisket and the beef? And then when they're like, no, this is the traditional Texas barbecue. And I'm like, dude, traditional Texas barbecue is Mexican, Czech, German, black people. It's all, and it became its own distinct thing, but it's such an amalgam of all these cultures. And then when as we said, is good.
It's good. I love it.
And then when you look at, game items, it seems like there's space within Tex-Mex, Mexican food, tacos, barbecue, chili, for all of these items to come together in a way that I can't go get at a local restaurant.
Correct.
I mean, just something as simple as Frito pie. I'm like, sound good to me.
Yeah. There's a lot of different things that people do with it, and it gives its own flavor and its own taste, and it's all enjoyable to the people who make it. So, it's not going to be for everybody. I'm not going to say that everybody wants to go eat a wild pig, because there's going to be people that don't want to, for the principle of the fact that it's a pig or it's a wild pig or whatever, they're not going to try it. But anywhere in Texas you can go and you can try different styles, different corners of Texas, different styles of food that are prepared with the wild game, and you'll find that you'll have a lot that's enjoyable in each different area that's different from the others.
Do you notice distinct? I mean, Texas is a huge state. For those of you, my parents still call me from Louisiana, and they find out if I'm okay during a hurricane, and I'm like, I'm in Central Texas. Yeah. I hate to say, we almost hope that the coast gets wiped out because we get some rain here in Austin. They think it's like Baton Rouge to New Orleans, and I'm like, no. I'm like, Dad, I got in my car and drove to Brownsville, and it took 8 hours. And he's like, what? It's such a big state. With wild hogs, are the management issues or hunting vastly different in different regions?
Yes. East Texas, you got a lot of tiny woods. You're not going to have the ability to do quite what we do, due to the fact that there's a lot more cover for the pigs. And you get into far West Texas, and there's not very many pigs all over them as far as wild pigs go. Over in the desert areas, over in the mountains, there's just not a lot of pigs over there. So you really don't have the issue over in that area that you have in Central Texas and South Texas and East Texas and West Texas. As far as Northwest Texas, excuse me. We call it West Texas up here around Lubbock, but it's North Texas. But it's funny. There are areas I've gotten so used to doing this. There are areas that I know that a simple interstate will split where there's going to be, a large wild hog population and very few pigs at all, separated by an interstate. So the fact that the pigs will travel the way they do and they learn and they stay in certain areas, it presents a different challenge to different people around the state on how they're going to harvest those pigs, how they're going to control
them. The geographic landscape changes drastically, and I've not been out to West Texas. I've been through parts of East Texas, a little bit further north, maybe into the Panhandle, down to Brownsville and McAllen area before driving through. West Texas, when they talk about how flat it is almost frightening to me.
It's ugly. It is not a pretty area when you're talking about, at night. It's just flat and dark. The trees that you're used to in Central Texas, we don't have the water that you're used to in Central Texas. It's the one thing that I miss the most about the Marble Falls area is, 5 big lakes right there around me within about 20 minutes. And that was wonderful growing up. We don't have that up here. We do have a different type of landscape, though, that when you get used to it, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, the geographic changes. I think it's hard for people out of state to understand geographically just how vast Texas is and how much it changes from region to region.
Right. Yeah.
And then, do you, as a critic, do you think the hogs in your area actually taste better because they're eating like commercial feed, wheat, corn, peanuts, you said, compared to like other regions?
Yeah, absolutely. I would much prefer to eat one up here off of the farmland around me than eat one down there in Central Texas, 100% of the time.
And is it just a higher fat content? Is it less gamey because of it's not rooting around as much?
Correct. The actual food that they're eating up here is going to be a lot like what they're eating in a food yard. Like I said before, peanuts and corn and wheat versus wild grasses and grub worms and the things that they find substance in down around where you're at.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to think like across species, if it's any issue. I mean, most animals for food production, people don't, I think, sometimes understand this. Centralized something feeding a CAFO, like the animals put onto a feed lot, essentially. Are pigs causing any problems for animals on a food lot? You talked about wild hogs surrounding it sound like a big baby calf. Are they causing problems for other like domesticated species of animals?
They can. You can get pigs in. I know of cattle farmers who had issues with pigs getting in and poisoning the water supply. Then you've got people that I've got good friends down around the Houston area that they hunt feedlots all the time because the pigs get in and they're constantly in there with the cows and they're eating all the food. I can't speak to all the issues that they have with them, but I definitely know they are there.
Yeah. Just the complexity, and again, even just talking about the state of Texas, like you could break Texas into 5 different states probably due to its landmass, geography, and size. So I can understand that the geography, terrain, the amount of farming in a certain area is going to change, what's going on with the animals, animal husbandry, and then also the wild species that are dealing with hunting. What have you seen during your lifetime? Like, have you always been interested in hogs and like hunting? Is it something that you had in your family?
I grew up hunting with my family. I did hunting and fishing outdoors. It's a wonderful part of the life that I've lived so far. I didn't get into what I'm doing right now on purpose. I was doing it as a hobby, and the farmers reached out to me and started asking me to be here more and more and more. And I've got a background in the car business. I still do that a little bit here and there, but it got to a point where they were so demanding of my time that I had to step away from the car business and focus solely on the hunting out here. I don't think that there's any question about it that I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not grown up doing the things that I did and learn it from a young age. And because of that, I'm a big advocate of trying to get anybody into the outdoors that has never been and teach people and let people learn and experience it, because I think it's a great thing for everybody.
Yeah. Steve Ranella, again, is a complete novice. Other people in the hog group were asking me questions, trying to feel me out. And I'm like, listen, I had family, grew up in the country in Louisiana. I don't come from a family of hunters. I don't know anything about it. I wasn't taught anything about it. My grandfather went to Canada every so often and harvested a moose. I remember that as a kid or whatever. But the hunting process, when you're dealing with guns, you're dealing with a hunting license, I don't have the equipment. I'm not going to go out in the woods in tie fisherman pants barefoot. I'll see a video of a guy, looks like he's wrestling a hog with his bare hands, and I'm like, that's not me. I'm not into that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
That's
not
not-
gonna. It's like that sounds like I don't have great insurance. I don't think that's a good way to go. The hogs, in addition, the farmers or hunters were talking about how, one, they're very intelligent. They're a very invasive species, and dare I say, downright violent. To find out that hunters have a rifle, but they carry a pistol because sometimes the hog gets angry and comes at you. You're like, now? It's like the squirrel's not going to attack you, but a hog will.
While people talk about that, that's not a regular occurrence. People wonder about me a lot because I'll have my hunters out in the field and I don't carry a sidearm with me when I'm out there doing it. I've got a deer rifle, or not a deer. We've got an AR-15 generally that my farmers or my hunters are going to have.
Yeah.
And that's it. But I don't worry about the pigs getting me. I don't think that they're very seldomly are you ever going to be in a position where one's going to want to come after you.
Yeah.
They're going to get away from you. And I think there's a lot of romanticism that has been created with people saying that, the pigs are going to attack them and they're going to eat them and they're going to do this, that, and the other. There's a little bit of a mixture between old gangster movies where they're feeding people to pigs and some Wild West movies and creating this idea.
I think the first time I saw that was Old Yeller.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was trying to think, where did that notion come from? And it was like, he was up in a tree, fell out, the hogs messed him up.
Yeah.
Are you using dogs to hunt the hogs?
No, sir. I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I don't choose to use the dogs. I do associates that do that. It's just not something that I do.
Is there and the thing is, I don't want to step on toes either. Is there a certain reason? Because when I put up photos, it's kind of like, well, we're hunting from a helicopter. Why no dogs? Is there a specific reason you prefer not to?
There are instances where a dog will be very useful in hunting pigs in thick brush and things of that nature. You're not going to. I love some of you guys. There's Casey and Wyatt and some of the guys that might watch this that are my buddies that dog hunt. You're not going to control the hog population with hunting with dogs. You're going to go out and they might get a couple a night, 3 or 4 a night, but comparatively to going out and getting 90 or 100 in a night with the thermals and whatnot, or going up in a helicopter and shooting 500 in a day, the dogs are going to be more of a hobby, and that's fine. That's everyone's right to have their hobby and do that. It's completely legal, and they can do that and have fun at it. There's some guys out there, like I said, some of my buddies that are very good at it.
So it sounds to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're more on the management side, and the hunting side is just a portion. You get to harvest some periodically for your own use. Yeah.
Yeah. In what I'm doing, I've told everybody, my clients, the landowners, everything, we're here for the landowners. What we're doing is trying to protect their crops and their investments. That's where I got started, and that's where I remain. I'm not trying to, while I really enjoy having people come out and hunt and everything, it's a byproduct of me being here for the farmers. Yeah. It does the opportunity to have people come in and do those things and have a business doing so. But we are here 100% to keep the hogs under control.
Large hog piglets. I don't know if they're called piglets. Are they called piglets?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have an eating issue, do you tend to prefer like pigs that are under a certain age? They're more tender, I guess I'd say. Less boar flavor with the older hogs?
I do. Now, Daryl, the gentleman we were talking about a while ago, he'll put me right in my place, and he'll tell everybody that I'm foolish when it comes to this, and that's okay. He's knowledgeable about it. I prefer a younger hog. My perfect is going to be, that barbecue size that I was talking about, 40 pounds, splitting it down the middle, throwing it on a barbecue pit. Fantastic. They're tender. They taste good. They're not old enough to have all the different hormones going through them that changes the flavor and the texture and whatnot, like you would a boar or what they call a wet sow, a sow that's nursing.
And you also got them before they were a big problem.
Correct. And I always make jokes with people. It's also a lot easier to load a 40-pound pig than it is a 250-pound pig. So
yeah, I've seen some photos, and it's like, man, it's like, does it fit in the whole bed of the pickup? Like, what? We have about 3 minutes, something like that. Is there anything else to like close up what we're discussing? Is there anything else that you really wish people knew about wild hogs and like management to hunting?
No, one of the things that I would say is anybody that's interested in getting into hunting or the outdoors, use the pigs as a good gateway. They're easier to hunt because they're more readily available than some of the other game animals that are out there. They're less expensive. You're not going to have somebody. Well, unfortunately, there are places in Texas that charge, in my opinion, an astronomical amount to go shoot a single pig or two. There are also places like myself that we don't have a limit. You can shoot at every single pig that we see because we're here to try to keep them under wraps, you know. But get into it. Find somewhere if you're wanting to get into the outdoors, if you're wanting to get into hunting. Find somebody that can take you out, show you, teach you, explain things while you're doing it, and bring the stewardship of the outdoors into your life and let you experience it, and then you can later share it with somebody else.
There's a wonderful tradition. And one of the things I was just a little saddened about is that I learned about organic gardening and farming from the internet. I was growing like heirloom tomatoes and other stuff as a little hippie kid in Austin trying to make raised bed gardens. And I realized like that had died in my family. In other words, that was something that was just handed down generation to generation. You know, had to know how to grow green beans and seasons and, you know, grow tomatoes, things like that. And I think the same thing probably happened with hunting at some point, but I lost contact with that piece. It wasn't something that was handed down in my family, and I could see with the hunters I have spoken with how not just a romanticized version, but it was very deeply in their families. It was very deep in their history, you know, telling stories amongst the guys about this hunting party or this hunting trip or that whitetail we harvested. Some of those connections with people, I think, were even more pronounced for me during COVID because there was such extreme isolation where it was like you were avoiding people. And I don't know, I think I need guy time out in the woods.
It's a great getaway for sure. So,
Yeah.
like I said, if you ever want to get out sometime and come give this a try, you're welcome. Come up sometime, bring a buddy with you, and I'll take you guys out and I'll show you everything. I'll show you the fields that they're tearing up. I'll show you where the pigs are staying. I'll give you a good experience as far as understanding more on a personal level of what's going on.
I'll talk to you more about that. I am really interested. I'll have to, because I'm a novice, ask you a couple questions, get a few details out of the way to make sure. I see hunting, and my audience is going to be a little like taken aback by that, but I really see it as being a connection between all these other things that I love, and I'm really interested in seeing another side of Texas that I've not really explored.
Somebody like yourself could be a huge gateway to a lot of these people that are in your community that are your followers and their hesitation about hunting, because I think that were you to come and have a real experience that's based on the right principles and see the things that can happen, it's something that you might open up a couple of people's eyes that they would then like to try it. And that's what my goal is I want everybody to be able to get in the outdoors and enjoy it and experience what I've been blessed enough to experience throughout my life.
Amazing. Listen, thank you so much for doing the podcast with me. I really, really appreciate it. People can find you right above your profile. Is it highplainhunts.com?
High Plains with an S. High Plains Hunts.
High Plains Hunts. Okay, no, I did spell it right. And then on Instagram, it's High Plains Hunts with an underscore between. For the Facebook page, I don't think it has that, but I wasn't able to mark it down. So, listen, Jeremy, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for chatting with me. If you have any questions at all, just let me know. I'm going to go ahead and close this down. And if you'll wait just 1 second, I'll be right there with you. Thank you all for participating in the podcast. It's really happy to talk with Jeremy. Thank him again. And I'll see you guys soon on the Robert Gardner Wellness Podcast.